Today we're going to talk about 6 signs that your ex is thinking about you a lot. Now, I actually did a couple of years ago a video very similar to this one where we talked about signs that your ex is thinking about you. What's kind of interesting is when I was preparing for this video to kind of update it with new information, I went back to that original video and started looking at the comments and found that there's a lot of people that were making real life suggestions of things that they've seen that kind of prove that their ex is thinking about them a lot. And some of them were really, really interesting and really good. So I decided to include them in this video to talk directly about them. So every sign that I'm going to be talking about today is based on a real life circumstance that someone else has told me about or that I have personally seen in our coaching practice. So let's just get right down to it. Sign number 1, big shifts in social media behavior. All right, this is actually something I talked about in the previous video, but to update it a little bit more, basically this is where your ex makes a subtle shift and sometimes a not so subtle shift in their social media posting habits. So for example, I am not a great social media poster, which is really ironic because I have a pretty large YouTube channel. I've got 2 pretty large websites, more than 2 actually. I do have a pretty large Facebook group. I have all these social media obligations that I'm supposed to do, but I'm just never really good at posting stuff on my Instagram to keep people up to date. And I know I should do it every single day. At the end of the day, I'm thinking, oh, I should have done more for Twitter or Instagram. But here's the point. You'll know something is going on with me if all of a sudden I start posting more and more and more and more abnormally on my social media accounts. It's not just about what I'm posting, it's also about the frequency of what I'm posting. So if you're noticing that your ex, who doesn't really post much on social media, all of a sudden starts posting a ton, or vice versa, they used to post a lot and all of a sudden they stop posting, it's a pretty clear indication that they are thinking about you. Now, figuring out what they're thinking about you, well, that's the real challenge. Sign number 2, they log into any shared accounts. Personal story time. My parents are fantastic. They're great. They're in their 60s, they're in their mid 60s, and while they have embraced technology, they're not always up to date perfectly with technology. For years, I would tell my dad about this concept called Netflix, and I said, well, it's kind of interesting. They have all these streaming things that you can just watch online. They're constantly updating content and everything like that. And he would always be like, yeah, cool. So one day I'll watch that. So upon visiting my house one day, I just literally turned it on for him and he was hooked. And I told him, hey, I'll give you my Netflix password so that you can gain access. You don't have to worry about paying for it or anything like that. But what's interesting about that is, you know how Netflix gives you this option to create kind of user profiles. So, you know, I've got one for kids, for my daughter, really. I've got one for me, and I've also got one for my brother, but my parents use my own shared Netflix account. And what's interesting is I can always see what they're watching. So if your ex is consistently logging into a shared Netflix account or a shared Hulu account or a shared Amazon Prime account or whatever shared accounts that you have, and they're watching things, every single time that they're logging into that, they are thinking about you. They have no choice but to. So that's a sign. Sign number 3, they hold on to some of your items after the breakup. Have you ever been in a situation where you go through a breakup and you know the inevitable exchange of items is coming up? So you reach out to your ex and you say, hey, I'm free this and this date. Let's meet up so that we can exchange our items. And your ex agrees, and then the last minute they cancel on you. And they give you a legitimate reason, so you reschedule with them. Then they cancel that, and you reschedule with them again. If you're beginning to notice a pattern of them canceling on you, it's a good sign that they're attributing actual emotions to those items. In a way, giving the items to you is akin to losing you forever, which is kind of this weird philosophical concept that they have. But it is a good sign that they're thinking a lot about you. Hey there, real quick before we get you back to your video, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, well, please do that. It really does help. It helps keep our video editors paid. It helps us keep doing these high quality videos. And it's really 5 seconds out of your day to click one little button. So if you could please just click the subscribe button. No harm, no foul if you're not interested, but we figured we'd try. All right, let's get you back to your video. Sign number 4, they literally tell you. This is actually a lot more common than you would expect. I mean, it seems obvious, like an ex telling you that I'm thinking a lot about you. But we have seen time and time again in our coaching practice, this actually happen when things are going really, really well. Oftentimes, if you're familiar with our concept of the no contact rule and the value ladder, it's usually during that texting phase or that phone call phase that they kind of admit, I've been thinking a lot about you lately. And what's interesting about it is they'll never outright just say, I've been thinking about you. They'll always kind of disguise it as, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, or I've been thinking a lot about when we did this lately. It's almost like thinking about you by association, if that makes any sense. Sign number 5, they text you and say they really meant to text someone else. I always viewed this as kind of like childish high school behavior, but you'll be surprised at how many 65 to 70-year-olds that I've seen do this exact behavior. So apparently we never get over that childlike idiocy. I guess it makes sense. Okay, so here's how this works. You're just going around your day, things are great, and then all of a sudden you get a text, ding, from your ex. You reach it out and the text message doesn't make any sense to you. And then you respond to it saying, was this meant for me? And they apologize saying, oh my God, I'm sorry. I accidentally texted the wrong person. Now, in my entire life, I've only texted the wrong person one singular time. And it was actually in high school. My ex-girlfriend and I used to have this thing where we would always wish each other good morning. So you'd wake up in the morning and you'd say, good morning, sweetie, or I love you, sweetie, or whatever BS you say, right? And I was in high school and I woke up in the morning, maybe it was like 6 a.m. or something. I'm getting ready to go to cross-country practice, and I send the text over to my ex-girlfriend. And maybe 30 minutes goes by and I get a response, but it's from my best friend. And he says, I really hope this wasn't meant for me. So the only time that I've ever accidentally texted someone was when I was just waking up and not had a lot of sleep and really out of the world. So it's highly unlikely that your ex texts you accidentally. More often than not, you'll see this happen during the no contact rule, where you are purposely ignoring them. This is kind of their manipulation to get you to respond. So depending on where you are in the situation, your response to this can be different. But ultimately, it is a sign that they're thinking a lot about you. Sign number 6, they call you and hang up when you answer. I've seen this being done very obviously because this is almost like a different or a more aggressive variation of the texting accidentally thing, where they call you and you pick up the phone and it's a dead, they hang up basically. So there's 2 ways we've seen this happen. Number 1, the first way is the butt dial approach, where, they call you just to see if you're around, and then they kind of walk around with the phone, making it seem like it's in their pocket or something. The second thing is they call you from an unknown number or a blocked number, or one where the caller ID doesn't come up, and then they sort of hang up. I've had this done to me in a different variation. That ex-girlfriend who I was talking about with the texting thing in the last sign, after we broke up, her friends would often harass me by calling me from a blocked number and just sort of breathing into the phone and then hanging up. So I never really got the full story after the fact, after the dust settled, whether or not she had ordered them to do this, but it kind of makes sense if you look at it from a logical standpoint. We went through a breakup, she's obviously very upset, let's get revenge, you call him and just whatever. And I think at one point when this happened, when her friends were doing this to me, I reached out to her and said, you need to get your friends to stop this. This is getting ridiculous. This is very childish. And she played dumb like she didn't know anything. Now, it could have been authentic. I don't know. Like I said, I never got it, but I always just assumed she was in on it. Like they were having like some sort of slumber party and just like, oh, whose exes can we call and mess with? Chris sounds great. And so that's what happened to me. So here's what you need to look out for this. Number 1 is the butt dial approach, where you literally get a phone call from your ex and nothing happens. And number 2 is if her friends or even family members are calling you and doing that to you. Keep an eye out. Now, if you're interested in learning what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back in your specific, unique situation, The next step for you is to take our X Recovery Chances quiz on our website, www.xboyfriendrecovery.com. Taking the quiz is very easy. Just look in the description link below this YouTube video and click the link you see there. It will take you directly to the quiz where we can get you filled out and figure out where you should be going and what you should be doing next. So again, description link, click the link you see there. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please help us out with those subscribers. You guys have been doing amazing lately. Let's keep it going. If you could just subscribe, just click that little subscribe button and that bell notification. I would be eternally grateful. I'll see you next time.